There it is, Mr. Edwards. We are live.
Yes, hello, hello.
Hello, everybody. This is Councilperson Carroll Fife, and we are back once again for our Thursday evening live with a council member. And today we have the pleasure of talking to Oscar Edwards. And Oscar, I would introduce you, but you do so many things, I don't even want to leave out anything.
It's
So
okay.
why don't you tell us about some of the endeavors that you're engaged in, and I can then talk about a little bit of the topics that we're going to get into, which is like downtown Oakland businesses, small business endeavors, public safety. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Oscar Edwards. I own Complex Oakland. We're located in the heart of downtown Oakland on 14th between Broadway and Franklin. I've been down here for over 10 years. I also just recently opened a grocery store called 14th Street Market. I do a little bit of everything. I'm mostly known as a entertainment space. I do a multi-facet of like concerts and private events. And then on top of that, I own a restaurant on my second floor, which it's called Trap Kitchen Oakland, which is encompass of Cajun food and a little bit of California flair. And yeah, it's a little bit of everything that I try to get myself involved in. Right now, I've just been trying to survive the pandemic like everybody else, and pretty much have lost most of the events that we've done. So we haven't done it in a year and 4 months, but we've been able to pivot and kind of stay somewhat relevant and thankful to the community to be able to stay alive just with my restaurant. And on top of that, once the pandemic hit, we had all the protests and all those things, and we lost a lot of things that a lot of the community members needed down here, which was like the grocery stores. We lost Martin Final a couple of years ago, and then during the protests, we lost Walgreens, which was like the last place to really be able to get essential stuff that you needed at the last minute if you lived in downtown, like the heart of downtown by City Hall. So for me, I decided to open a grocery store to serve the people that were down here, not only just the community members that have been down here for years, the seniors, the low income, even the homeless people I deal with, but also the new people, the newcomers, the people who are just moving down here, who are new to Oakland and came to Oakland because of what it represents and what it is. And so I try to make a place where they can all be able to come and get what they need. So yeah, it's been a very, very trying time, but I see a lot of great things happening in the horizon that's going to come.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I will say that I did stop in your grocery store and get the honey, and I specifically got it for my morning tea. And I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I noticed that it's gone in like 2 weeks. And I'm like, how is this even possible? How much honey can you possibly use? And it was just that good. So, you offer some organic goods. You offer things that I've never even seen. Like, what is nymphsthustle? What is it?
I focus on also inside of my grocery store. One of the things I really wanted to focus on was trying to bring in Black vendors or Black, basically people who already kind of get overlooked by the major chains and don't get all the shelf space that they deserve. And so like the honey that you had was from a father and son team out of Vallejo. The Hella Tea is straight here from Oakland. It's a husband and wife team. And, they were just featured on ABC News.
Really?
So, yeah, they were just featured on the Nation's box, which is like a big thing. So ABC did a very big buy from them. So they're blowing up. I just want to I have a section that's for Black owned vendors. Now, I do encompass everybody. So it's not just Black people that come to our store and everything like that. But I wanted to make sure that we had a section that represented what we're trying to do, especially here on 14th Street, which is the BAM. And kind of encompass, bringing some, business back, recycling the dollar in terms of in our community. So at least, if I buy from them, they give to the consumer, then I make money, they make money, and the consumer is happy. It's a win-win for everybody, and it just helps the community all the way through.
Now, Oscar, you said two things. First of all, you used an acronym. You said the BAMD, and for people who don't know what that is, I want you to get into that a little bit. But also, can you tell me some of the other small businesses or some of the small vendors that you use or work with that you feature in your store?
Yeah. So for those who don't know what the BAM is, it's the Black Arts Movement Business District. And that's on 14th Street. And it starts from the lake all the way down to West Oakland. If you go for 14th Street, it goes from 10th all the way to 18th. And that basically is something that was started by your predecessor, but it really encompasses the feeling of what's going on. Oh, wow, it's getting dark around here. But it really encompasses the feeling of, we're trying to set a community standard, letting people know that, we have Black businesses down here, and we want to keep that generational wealth and the legacy of Oakland, the history of what's going down here, from the arts to the jazz to all those things on one area. Just like the Kono has their area, Chinatown has their area. We wanted an area that encompassed African Americans, and that was the whole purpose of the band. And so, I'm located on the street. Jeffrey's located on the street. Miss Joyce, a lot of legacy business, the AMLO, the Malanga, all those places really encompass what the growth of this area is, on top of the smaller people and also people who are not African American but are still inside of the footprint. They encompass what we want to do for the community too. And so, that's one of the things that we're going to talk about and be working on. We're working on a band merchant association to kind of get more recognition within the city, and working with you and economic development, ODOT, everybody that we can talk to that wants to help us let people know that we're here. In terms of the vendors that I use down in my grocery store, it's a little bit of everybody. I reach out to all African American vendors. So I have everything from Black-owned laundry detergent, which comes from Atlanta, which is true. I have Freedom toilet paper. I have, like I said, Hella Tea, which is an Oakland-based tea company. We also have Tea with a Meeting, which is Oakland-based. We have the Bay family that brings me granola and pies and all that stuff. We have people from the Farmers Market, which is Mr. Bean Pie. He does stuff. We also have CMOS that is from local vendors. We have lemonade. Just a whole encompass of things that, represent our community. And also what I also focuses on, and sometimes at regular grocery stores, they don't have those specialty items that we're used to cooking with, from everything from collard greens to Old Bay hot sauce to exotic sodas, all those different things that sometimes other stores would overlook. I try to encompass those to make us a little bit different.
Were you able to get your license to sell wine?
Not yet. I needed the zoning permit to be able to do that. I was able to find one to purchase, like a wine license, but because the city was closed and zoning is so hard to do through email, I wanted to wait until we got into opening a little bit and the city offices were open so I can go through that zoning permit process.
Okay, got it. And so thank you for sharing all of that. And the tea, the Hella Tea is hella good. I just want to say that. I don't drink coffee, so I drink a lot of tea.
Yes.
Which is why I wanted the tea and the honey. But you can't talk about the BAM, the Black Arts Movement Business District, without Black arts, right? And so I think it's really important that you talked about Joyce Gordon and the Joyce Gordon Gallery. That is like my second mother, and has been a part of this community for many, many years. And you got to talk about Betty Ono. You got to talk about, Anika Barber. You got to talk about Ayodele Nzinga. That's not on 14th, but is in West Oakland.
Right.
Lower bottom quarter. So
which West Oakland is a big part of the thing. Like right now, our destination doesn't have, the BAM doesn't have their destination, that 7th Street is inside of the BAM, but it should be included. Only because your jazz and the Esther's Room and all those different things that started on that street should be included in what's happening in terms of African Americans in Oakland. And so, once we get ourselves settled, we definitely want to figure out a way to how we include 7th Street and all the rest of West Oakland inside of the BAM. Absolutely.
And I brought that up because that's one of my focuses as the district representative. I want to see that entire district thrive. So I'm doing my research, talking to folks in the city about what's been done to date and what type of investment is needed. And also, during this budget cycle, I'm getting briefings from department heads. And for everybody that thinks, and sorry, I'm about to step on some folks' toes right now.
Go ahead.
I do that sometimes. For people who think that if we lose a sports team, that the entire economy of the city of Oakland will crumble, they're not hearing the briefings that I'm in about all of the real estate investment that's coming to the city. There's been hundreds of millions of dollars invested throughout Oakland through the purchase of real estate spaces, through infrastructure and investments, and lots of other things. So no, Oakland is one of the hottest real estate markets in California right now.
I believe it.
People, right, in terms of people coming in, and there are a lot of investments being made in the space. So it's still an amazing place to be, and you are doing the work to serve that particular area of downtown Oakland. And so we appreciate that, and we want to grow that, and I want to help to grow that. And I will say that next time I have you on, I'm going to get you some lights, because I don't know what's going on.
Let me see. Is that better?
That's
yes.
better.
All right. Yes.
That's better.
I'm in the dark, and it's getting a little shadow here.
Okay.
But things I wanted to ask you, with all the development that's going on and everything, and I know, one of the things that you've been working on is doing your due diligence. And that's what I really appreciate about you, is that you are asking the questions and asking the people what's going on before you are making decisions.
Right.
And a lot of people don't do that. They just make decisions and then they be like, okay, well, they don't have to deal with it. And one of the things, you're finding out everybody's equity. And I really appreciate that about you and what your team is doing. And so for me, I hear what everybody's saying about the A's stadium, and I understand it. I have a member that works for the A's, but we've lost a lot of teams, and Oakland's still here. And so the way we have to find out is where we're at is basically figuring out, how do we tap into what our resources are that we already have and built already.
Right.
Because even with them building, if they even were to be able to build a new stadium, you won't see those repercussions until and some of the stuff that we have going on is affecting us right now, and we need to handle that right now, not years down the line. Because like I tell a lot of business owners that we deal with, if you don't get involved right now, then you might not have a business, because you don't know what's going on around you. Like, for example, zoning is changing a lot of rules. They have the Pacific plan. They have a lot of these different things that they're trying to change. They've been working on for a while, and if you didn't get in the conversation or are not aware of what's going on, you're going to be left out in the dust. And then, let's say, for example, like zoning over here, where I have my store at, it was not zoned to have alcohol there, so I have to go to CUP. CUP requires, $5,000 and all these different other things and community input before you're able to be able to showcase your business. Sorry. And so for me, it's just like, how do we foster business in the city of Oakland to make it a one-stop shop where it's easier for everybody to go. You don't have to go to all these different departments to be able to open a business. That's the hardest part right now. A lot of communication is not had between departments. Right. And so you're talking to one person and they tell you one thing, you go to another person, they tell you something else. And then let's say the other person is wrong, you're caught in a situation. A lot of gray areas. Right. So, my whole thing and my hope for Oakland is that we figure out how to streamline some of these processes, not only just for people who have businesses here, but for the future to be able to have more businesses here. People come here and want to do business in Oakland, because, San Francisco makes it a lot easier, sorry to say, than we do to open a business, which is sad, but it is sometimes true. And so, I want to see a lot of entrepreneurs be successful around here from all diversities and colors. We want everybody to be able to open and be successful down in Oakland and be able to bring that diversity that Oakland brings and that Oakland flair that you only can get in the 510. And so my hope is, we're doing the footwork, that's all we can do right now. And kind of get ready for reopening and basically try to get us back on track with our economy. Because a lot of businesses didn't make it. I'm going to say that I'm going to be able to make it out this pandemic, but I know a lot of businesses and friends and colleagues that just couldn't do it. They didn't want to take loans or access to loans because, sometimes when you're a small business owner, the bookkeeping is not always what it always seems to be. And then
Right.
for all, people didn't know all the information. Some people were not great at that stuff. And so the resources that were there to kind of help some of these people through it weren't exactly, encompassed for everybody. So we did lose a lot of small businesses that even, I think we lost about 5 or 6 on our street. We lost a couple of venues. And we lost a lot of people some people, I know a sandwich shop that's right across the street, he only opened for 3 months. He wasn't African-American owned, but he had a great business plan, but his whole business plan fell through because of the pandemic, because he was relying on office workers to get lunch. So when, nobody went to the offices, there's nobody to buy lunch. He had to sell the business.
Wow.
Everything always changes. And yeah. So,
So what type of supports do you, for the people who have survived the pandemic, what type of supports are needed, and why is it easier to open a business in San Francisco than it is in Oakland?
Well, the support that's needed is, like I say, is a streamlined process.
Okay.
Right now, if you wanted to open a business in Oakland, in San Francisco, you can go to pretty much one area and they're going to have somebody to walk you through. Now, Oakland does have economic development. They have small business resources, but it's not all the way incumbent. It doesn't take you through the process where it's easy to do. By the time you get through, planning, then you got to go through zoning and, get and then you got to go fire. And then on top of that, you got to make sure, if you're doing a health thing, you got to make sure you got your health permit. And then if you get into ABC, you got to do into ABC. And so it kind of gets into a little bit of a muffled area. Even for, let's say I'm in an events business. If somebody wanted to come out here, and we've lost a lot of events like this because we don't have the event capability sometimes. If somebody wants to come out here and throw a concert or a major event or like a major, festival, it's very, very difficult. You have to know the right people to walk you through.
Mm.
You have a consultant almost to walk you through, only because if you were to try to do it by yourself and you were to take this, just say you went online to oakland.org CA and just went on and find out all the information, it's not there. It's not enough to be like, okay, I need to go get this person for a sound permit. I don't need to go get this person for special events. This is what the special events rules are. Like, it's very, it's a lot of gray areas. So you have to know, huh?
It's like piecemeal.
Yeah, you have to piece it together.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense if you have one office. Like if I went to the special events office, which now is being moved, which I'm so grateful for, from OPD to Greg's office, it makes it incumbent because I need to go see Greg anyway to get a sound permit. If he's in charge of special events, I can get that permit at the same time too. And then right next to him is fire. And if the fire department and the special events office works together, then they're going to work together, and I don't have to go to so many places. I'm able to get my event streamlined.
Yeah.
But if I have to go to Eastmont, then I got to go to Greg's office. Then I got to figure out what fire is. It becomes, you know what I'm saying? You deter people. They're like, oh, I'll go take my business over somewhere else where they're going to give me more of the services that I need.
Right.
And we've lost a lot of, like, I would say big corporation stuff, but we've lost like movies, all kind of different little small things that should have happened here, that people wanted to do festivals from across the country that didn't happen because those processes were hard. In terms of business relationships, same thing with business. If you want to be able to open a business, it should be easy where, I go get my business permit. I go get my, tax information from the city tax or from, city tax and all that stuff. It should be all in one where they be like, okay, do this, fill out this one form. We're going to give you all this. I shouldn't have to go fill out 5 different forms from 5 different departments because everybody works separately to open a business in Oakland. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should be very streamlined because all I'm doing is filling out the same information.
Got it.
I'm giving you my tax information. I'm giving you all those different things. It should be able to pass. It should be able to pass through each department with one form.
Right.
None of the information is changing. My name. My tax information.
I made this suggestion to a lot of foundations, like the places that give money to nonprofits, to have like a FAFSA. Like the student aid has an application that will send your information to every college that you put on the application, so you don't have to keep sending a financial aid application independently.
Exactly.
So we need that type of system in the city.
Right. And then another thing, the only reason why sometimes somebody put that in the comments is like, San Francisco it is a city and it's the county. It's kind of encompassed in one. Oakland is not. The county is Alameda, and the city is City of Oakland.
Right, right.
So when they mix, sometimes the rules change.
Right.
You know, the county may be doing one thing, the city may be doing a whole different thing. And that's what happens too in terms of communication. You know, even though like when you have to get your alcohol permit or anything like that in your health, you have to go to the building department in the city of Oakland, but then you have to take that same thing back. Oh, excuse me. You have to take that same thing back to the health department.
Right.
It's so easy if they communicate it and they can just, boom, send out a flyer. This is what's coming your way. Here's all the information that you require from us to be able to approve this person.
So do you know this person that's talking to you, Oscar? What is her name? Derailier?
I did not.
They kept changing the rules on you in the middle of the process.
Yeah. So don't forget. Oh yeah, I see. Don't forget to mention Oscar. Oakland keeps changing. Yeah, they do. that is true. They do change the rules on you in the middle of the process for some people, depending on if they want you to, you know, I don't want to say that division has been there, but I have had some interesting experiences in Oakland. And I don't think it's racist, but it's very questionable in terms of some of the stuff I've dealt with over being an African-American owner. Oh, that's Dave. Oh, what's up, Dave? East Bay Bi Coalition. Hey, that's Dave Campbell.
We don't all know Dave. Who is Dave?
Dave is from the East Bay Bi Coalition. He is a bicycle advocate and a great barbecue man. So that's one of the things, you know, and me and Dave have known each other for a very, very long time. At one point in time, you know, they've been working on the bike lane for 14th Street for a while. And it's one of those things where I have to be on both sides. As a business, I'm like, you know, I think about it all the time because I think about parking. We already lost a lot of that on 14th Street. We've lost a lot of places where, you know, to be able to load in and load out, there's a lot of congestion in terms of like traffic accidents, all kind of double parking, all kind of stuff that happens down there. And so for me to see us go from 2 lanes to 1 lane and have a place for bicycles, I'm all down for biking, but the whole thing comes into a point where like the merchant part of trying to operate your business, and this is your only way to get your stuff in. And let's say somebody disabled wants to go to my grocery store or go to my restaurant and they need to park closer. It becomes you know what I'm saying? Right. I have to be on thing because I want bicycle people to be safe because I bike myself. But at the same time, do I want to take away parking and also the functionality of what I have on a small street that's already busy as crap, you know? And with that, I feel like that's going to be more dangerous. So it's one of those things where like us and Oak Dot have been going back and forth. The merchants of 14th Street, as I say, us and the Oakland Department of Transportation. So it's one of those things that we're still in conversations about. I'm hoping that nothing gets moved yet. We still have to figure out. I've seen multiple designs, and that's one thing I can say about Dave is that they've been very patient with us and trying to work with us in terms of figuring out the best way how we can make something happen.
So you're saying Oak Dot has been. So tell me more about that.
I would say, yeah.
You don't got to say anything about the department.
I would say Oak Dot because we just started having conversations with Oak Dot. So they were at my last meeting that I threw, and we're just going back into conversations again. We started conversations at the beginning, right when the pandemic first started. Now we're, you know, all the pandemic stuff happened, so now we're just reconnecting and getting back to the conversation of how we figure this out. We got to meet in the middle ground, and we're going to figure it out. But, you know, we just came across all this construction. You know, we have the Atlas next to me. We have all this construction that just happened on 14th Street that just got completed. Right. And everybody is so happy to be able to kind of have a breath. And as soon as you thought you were going to have a breath, COVID hit. And you're trying to figure out how to stay above water. Right. And then if you come back with more construction, you're going to be taking your breath right away. So that's the reason why they're like, so we'll figure it out. But yeah, it's one of those conversations that has to happen.
I wasn't trying to get you to say anything about your position on the Department of Transportation. I want you to lay out for the people who are listening, what is the issue? Are they taking parking spaces away? Are they making the roads smaller? What is the issue?
So the original plan was to make it into one lane.
A one-way?
To make basically 14th Street into one lane and make the other lane into a bicycle lane. And so that right there is the issue in itself, because if you only have one way up and one way down and the other parts are bicycle lanes, and they were talking about like trying to figure out making parking and stuff like there was on Telegraph, which would be, you already see what happened on Telegraph. That would be very bad.
Right.
So we don't want to do that, but figuring out how we do, create a sort of a buffer so we can protect bicyclists, but at the same time, we need that parking. We've lost all the parking structures to developments, which, in a second, there's another development that's coming up behind me that's in a parking lot, and that's 150 spaces. We're going to be left with like one parking lot down here. Now, some of these developments do have parking lots, but a lot of them close at night. So for people who are going out for the nightlife that are from, a lot of the nightlife that comes to Oakland is not from Oakland.
Okay.
Would love to come visit us. So, and you have lots of tourism, a lot of hotels, new hotels have been built downtown. So you have a lot of people from out of town. So when all that stuff is coming about and people are going out, and they have nowhere to park, and I don't care what nobody says, if people are still going to be driving cars, whether they are automated or whether they are, people are personally driving them, there will be cars on the streets. And so how people get to events, our mass transportation didn't mean to be like this, but we have to have parking. And right now there's no parking. They're taking away all the parking. And so we have to encompass a place for our patrons to be able to go that want to visit our businesses. And then also for the people who live down here. He wants to move I-80 freeway. If it should occur, it would have major impact on
Dave said he didn't mean to start a bite conversation, because I would tell you.
No, I love Dave. Dave, I'm coming to get some brisket. I don't worry about it. I ain't worried. I love Dave so much. So, and I don't want to, and that's the thing. It's like, we all talk about gentrification. Gentrification is already here. And that's a big conversation everybody has. Gentrification is already here. Now, how we encompass it and deal with it is up to us. How we continue to create, stuff that is legacy for Oakland, that people who've already been here, and to be able to make their voices louder and to show, we want to keep moving forward. We got to figure that out. And that's the thing of like, we got to meet in the middle ground. I'm all for progress, and, progress is important, because without progress, we wouldn't have all the stuff we have now. We'd still be in the 90s. But without, understanding where we came from and where we're going, we're not going to be able to, encompass what we have to do. What does it say at the bottom? I'm sorry, FYI. Today is 36th anniversary of bombing of the Move family.
I'm going to get into that, because, Oscar, we didn't get to talk about public safety.
Yes.
So I'm going to have you back on so we can talk about what that means for the businesses downtown. Is it safety ambassadors? Is it OPD? I want to hear. We're not even going to get into that today.
No, we don't have to get into that. But I do want to say that one of the biggest things that's happening, and that just happened yesterday, I had somebody who came to my restaurant. They were just there within 15 minutes, and they got their car broken into. Bipping has become, and for those who don't know bipping, that's what they come around and break into your cars, has become crazy downtown. It's unbelievable. And we have to figure out some way to figure out what we have to do, whether, like I said, you said ambassadors or whoever, but yeah, have to figure that out, because if people don't feel safe coming to somebody's business and they can't park their car and just be able to go get whatever they want, groceries, food, whatever, then it's going to be a problem. People are going to go to other cities to go get what they need.
Yeah. So we're gonna have you back to talk about that. We're gonna wrap it up for this particular segment. I'm gonna bring on another special guest, but thank you for coming on, and I'm gonna have you back. Is that cool? You're gonna come back and talk to us?
Yeah. I would love to come back and talk to you. And thank everybody for watching us too, for those who are participating.
All right, Oscar Edwards. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Dang, that was an abrupt end. What happened to Oscar? Did he just take himself off? Before we bring up our next guest, which I think is it's critical to this point that was just raised by Kathy Kojimoto, if we could bring that back up, I think it's really important to state that today is the 36th anniversary of the bombing of the Move family in Philadelphia by the late Wilson Good. Mothers were at University of Pennsylvania to ask for the remains of their children. So we're going to go ahead and bring on Kat Brooks. Kat Brooks is one of the co-founders of the Anti-Police Terror Project, and why that statement was important to me, specifically about this particular issue around police terror, is because that is probably one of the worst accounts of police terror in the United States history. It is the bombing of the Move house killed women, men, women, and children. And some of the remains of the children from the Move house are on display for an anthropology course at the University of Pennsylvania. Their bones are being studied. Their bones were taken from their families and are being used as if they are just materials for the pleasure of other individuals. So not only was the tragedy of them not having agency to live their own lives in Philadelphia, but also now the second injury of having their family members' remains taken away without their consent is just beyond comprehension. So that being said, I do want to give honor and respect to the living members of the Move family, the Africa families, and I want to bring on Kat Brooks from the Anti-Police Terror Project. Hey, sisterin. Did I have you come on during Wagwan? Oh my goodness! All this locked beauty.
And you too. Why are you so bright and I'm so fuzzy? Is my camera just that dirty? Is that the problem?
No, I have like 4 lamps around me. I've learned. It's lighting, sis. It's all lighting. Oh, that you did something. Thank you for being with me today. I appreciate it. I know your day was full. I know you're super busy.
Yeah, so you just been slacking it over there, kicking it, bonbons, soap operas,
eating ice cream, But tell us, for the people who may be watching, who may live on a different planet and not know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. What's up, Oakland? My name is Kat Brooks. I am the co-founder of the Anti-Police Terror Project and the executive director of the Justice Teams Network. APTP was born in Oakland, now has chapters here and in Sacramento. We work very closely with people that are impacted by state-sponsored violence, families, loved ones, communities. We work on shifting the ways in which our communities, our police, and our bodies are incarcerated through communications, advocacy, direct action, you name it. And then Justice Teams Network is really APTP, but all across the state, and engages in state advocacy. We are the creators of the defund OPD movement here in Oakland, and the first ones to actually demand alternative responses to mental health crisis without law enforcement 6 years ago. And so I'm really excited about where that conversation has evolved to and other folks that have come to the table to get us to where we are now.
Yeah, I saw you on CNN. I saw you and James Birch on CNN talking about defund.
Man, but Laura Kaswani and Nicole Lee, and I mean, it was Jackie Byers. It was town business. They needed to have my brother in arms, and Community Ready Corps. They should have been way more present for all that they contribute to this city and this movement. But you can catch the 3 of us, me, Tarha, and Kamau, on IG Live. It's on Kamau's page for a continued conversation.
Yeah, and part of that, part of the show, there was maybe a minute and 27-second clip of what defund means. in the city, not just for the city of Oakland, but across the nation, what it means to defund. And I actually use that clip as the chair of public safety in the city of Oakland for our city council when I was presenting around the different ways that we were reimagining public safety. So when we presented the resolution with some of the recommendations from the task force, I played that little clip because there are still some people that think that when you say defund, that means eliminate the police. So, the messaging is different to different people. So can you explain a little bit about what does defund mean?
Yeah, and just another shout to Kamau. I mean, when I watched the segment and he had, the animated definition of what defund means, Matt sat there like as one of the creators of the movement was like, wow, that's what it is. That's what it is, right? Like, good, right? Okay, now I'm clear too. So it is. He did do a really great job. I mean, right. So defund does not mean, and never has meant, and nowhere does it say that you're going to wake up tomorrow and police departments are going to have absolutely no money and all the cops are going to be gone. And what I think, actually, I think that there's a certain group of people that then have images of Black and brown people running through the streets wild like savages, right? Like, I mean, I want to be honest. If we're going to have this conversation, have the conversation, right? Like, that's who's going to control us, right? That's the fear that comes up for people. But what about those people? But that's not what it means. What it means is that we have spent 400 plus years in investing our dollars and the people's dollars in a failed system, and something that was not created actually to provide safety. It was created to provide capital for white people on Black bloody backs, right? The first police were slave catchers and the cavalry, right? So indigenous folks and us. That's why, why they were created in the South, and then in the North, they were created to crush labor movements. So it's always been about protecting race-based capitalism, which is the particular brand of capitalism that we have in this country, and to maintain the status quo. And so 400 plus years later, we throw tens of millions of dollars into this strategy that does nothing more than cycle people through violence, right? A claim that it can achieve peace through violence. The reality is that if we could police and incarcerate our way to safety, we'd be the safest country in the world, because we do that more than anyone else, and more than most countries, several developed countries combined. So defund is really not a radical idea, Carol. It's a excuse me, Council Member Fife. It's a rational idea, right? And one of the things that I've been saying, not ideas, or it's a rational practice. And one of the things that I've been saying lately is that we may not be a nation of morals, right? Because I don't know that you'd be hard pressed to convince me of that, given the shenanigans that happen in this country every day. But I do think that we're a smart country, and that we are a country that appreciates data and logic. And if any other institution or system or department was failing the way in which law enforcement fails to actually create safety, there's no way we would be throwing all this money at it, right? If we actually look at the numbers of recidivism, we'll get to what's happening right now in the spike in crime that's happening in urban cities across this country. It's not just happening in Oakland. Let's be really clear, right? If we looked at the sheer data, right, it is failing. So even if you don't ascribe to anything else that I say here tonight, if you don't believe that it's still being used as a form of slavery, enslavement, right, for Black and brown people, if you don't believe that it's being used to uphold white supremacy and patriarchy and U.S. imperialism, like, you don't have to believe any of that stuff. That's all true. You don't believe it. What you will have to concede tonight, though, is that it doesn't work. So Oakland, let's localize this now. Oakland gives almost half of our general fund, right, to the Oakland Police Department. And every single year, Oakland is on the top 10 most dangerous cities list. Every year. Now that has skyrocketed, right, over the last year and a half, when then people run around saying, we don't understand why this violence. We understand why the violence has increased, because poverty has been exacerbated by COVID. So all of the fractures and stressors and all of those things, and the people that were locked out of the underground economy, locked out of the above ground economy, that are making a living in the underground economy, all of that stuff's been exacerbated. The trauma, the triggers, the wounding of either being terrified you're going to die, knowing people are going to die, haven't been sick, haven't lost your job, haven't lost your housing, all of that stuff has been exacerbated by COVID. If law enforcement was the answer, then how did this happen? I'll wait.
It's because they don't have enough money, Kat. I mean, half of the general purpose fund is not enough.
$300+ million.
They probably need, if you just gave them maybe 75% of the general purpose fund, because what is the next step, right? Because isn't that the equation? Isn't that what we're heading towards?
Well, with Libby's budget, yes, with Libby's proposed, but I mean, I've been asking facetiously, of course, if the LRAD, that machine that they sit on us when we're in the streets, if that got her in the ear. I have never seen anything so tone deaf in my life. That budget in the middle of a national conversation about protecting the human and civil rights of Black and brown bodies by divesting from the institution that wages war on them every single day. Her response to that in our sanctuary city was, nah, I'm gonna cash them out some more, right? The problem with giving the police more money means that then there's less money for everything else. That means there's less money for your potholes. It means there's less money for your parks. It means there's less money for your after school programs. It means there's less money for things like Civic Corps. That means there's less money for job training. That means there's less money to deal with air and water pollution. That means there's less money for everything, right? That actually keeps communities safe. And I think that's a piece that people miss, right? They get so locked into the only pathway that they can see to public safety is badges and guns and people in blue uniforms.
Right.
But when you have this piece of the conversation with folks, we're like, oh, wait, right? Less money for shelters, right? Some of y'all out there, you don't like people camping out next to your house because you paid $2 whatever million for that house on Liquifax in the bottoms, by the way. Boy, when the big one hits, some of y'all gonna be mad. But you're right. What if we took money away from cops and we built shelters? We could actually house people.
Right.
We could right adequately. But we're trying to police our way to say police our peace, and it's never going to happen. So defund is about breaking out of the insanity and about investing in things that actually keep us safe and making sure that people have their basic needs met, right? Housing, clothes, food, that people have pathways into the above ground economy, that we are dealing with things like trauma and wounding, because that's actually the biggest perpetuator of violence is trauma and wounding. If you look at the cycle of violence, healthy people don't hurt people, hurt people, right? So it's about getting in front of the violence instead of responding to it. Police are not violence interrupters. They are violence responders. They are never there before it happens. Wouldn't it be great to get to the gun before the bullet flies? We also
Mari, are we breaking up a little bit? Is Kat breaking up a little bit? Oh, I think she's okay. I think one of the things I wanted to just say thank you for as an organization, even though people are trying, there's an element of the public that is trying to make our relationship unethical at the city council, and are spewing all of these rumors and lies about the Anti-Police Terror Project and what I'm trying to do for the Anti-Police Terror Project. I'm really grateful for the way that people consistently show up, people who are not even members of the organization, that have been saying the safest communities are not the communities with the most police officers. They are the communities with the most resources. And that is something that I recently tweeted out. I think it's really important because the more that we invest in policing and the way that we do things right now, as you said, the less money that we have to invest in the things that will diminish crime in the first place. So if you're not investing in education and job training programs and housing and all of these different things, then the conditions that people are experiencing will continue to deteriorate, and we'll just see an explosion of the things that people don't want to see. So it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy that we're never going to be able to get out of. It's this like cycle that we can't break until we do something different. And people like to say that radical is crazy, but it's the only sensible radical shift that can happen. And
the definition of crazy, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, actually. Right. So crazy, and I've been trying to get better about that. So forgive me, y'all, right in my ableism language. It's an area for me to work on. And it's what I have in this moment, right? Crazy is continuing to give OPD half of our general fund instead of invest in things that are actually preventative or healing. That's crazy. That makes no sense.
But Cat Brooks, wait a minute. People are killing each other.
Yeah.
So what do we do in this particular moment? What do we do?
Yeah, people are killing each other. And again, I'm going to go the root cause of what's happening in our communities, right? I live in the West. I don't know where people think I live, right? But I live in a place where gunfire happens in broad daylight on my block, right? That's where I live. And I'm raising a child here, right? I've been off and on, a little bit disabled with some stuff. I walk down my street in fear of, because I can't move right. So it's not that. And I know that the cops aren't fixing it. And far too often they are actually exacerbating the issue. So what do? Invest in community ambassadors, invest in community security, invest in people that have relationships on the block, that know how to negotiate that stuff, that can feel it. Anybody who lives in the hood knows, except for maybe some of y'all that just moved there, we can feel it when something's about to hit. You can feel it. You know. I want organizations to be armed with the resources, right? To be able to employ Black and brown people, to pay them living wages, to be in their communities, to interrupt violence. People need jobs. You bring a bunch of shot callers into a room and ask them, how do we end this? Jobs, and not $6 an hour at McDonald's. It's not good enough for you. Why is that good enough for them? Right? Jobs that they can have housing and feed their children and often their parents, or put money on people's books, or whatever it is that they need to do to get through the day. And the trauma, and I've been harping on it, right? The trauma and the wounding. It's my new obsession. I'm so clear. We have these shootings that happen. So we're up to what 100? What are we at? 100 now?
I've been told that the numbers are being misrepresented. So I'm not sure where we are right now.
So we have shootings. So I don't need the numbers to make my point. So we have these shootings that happen, right, in these communities. And we send 8 bazillion cops. Yeah. Not a single solitary trauma worker. What if we sent more trauma workers than we did with cops to interrupt the wounding and the trauma that happened in that moment?
Speaking of, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened this week? It feels like it's been years now. I don't even know what day it is. But why don't you tell us about the incident that you just experienced in District 2 of Oakland?
Yeah, so we got APTP, Anti-Police Terror Project, started getting notifications on our social platforms and then through our personal networks that a Black man had crashed his car in District 2 on a residential street, and he wasn't moving. And then that folks thought he had a gun. Cops thought he had a gun, and the cops were surrounding him. The neighbors did not want him to get killed. That was what they were clear. We don't want this man to die, and OPD couldn't wake him up, and so they called APTP and they asked us to come, and they called Community Ready Corps, asked them to come. So we did. We showed up with our trauma responders. We showed up with our first responders team. We were able to work. I was in conversation with you, sis. I was also in conversation with Councilmember Bass, right, who was able to help communicate, right, to law enforcement. And we had 2 asks when we showed up: time and space, as much time and space as is required, and then let us find a family member. Let us find someone he knows and trusts to be able to do the de-escalation and to get him out of the car. And when they walked away, they were like, well, we'll see. They committed to the time and space. I will give OPD that. Like right away, they were like, we'll be here as long as it takes. Now I can't see, right? They're so far away. Had they not adhered to that, we wouldn't have known until we heard the bullets. But at least verbally, that was the agreement. And then community, because it's Oakland, they found the mama, and the mama showed up. We had mental health workers there. The mama showed up and the sisters showed up. So we were able to have mental health workers there because they showed up on tilt, because they were clear, right? They knew who their loved one was. They knew that he had warrants. This is all public information now, so I'm not breaking confidence. They knew he had warrants. They knew that there was probably a gun in the car, and they knew that he was, dealing with his trauma and wounding via substance abuse. So they were pretty sure that there was substance abuse. And so what this mother said, right? Basically, he's Black. There's probably a gun in the car, the substance abuse. and he's in violation of parole, they're going to kill my baby. And not today. No, they're not. Not today. And they didn't, because ultimately what happened is OPD did allow, they did take our recommendation that the mother be the one to go de-escalate. And so she was able to go up there. They put her behind a shield and she was able to talk him out of the car. And so, yes, he went to custody and he had to go to jail. And now we're trying to keep eyes on him because Santa Rita, the death chamber of our county, but he's breathing. And it wasn't another Joshua Pollock or Demaria Hogg or, Willie McCoy, which we were all, when en route to the scene, I was fairly positive that we were going to lose another Black body, but we didn't. And we didn't, y'all, because Oakland kicked in, because we've been kicked in.
Hella kicked in. Because I got the call very early from Karina Lou, who had just been on my live like a couple weeks earlier.
Yeah.
And I was like, Karina sent me the pictures of the assault rifles that were trained on the car. And I was like, what the hell is happening? And, we were frantically texting. Karina was texting me and my chief of staff. And I was talking to you and I was talking to Tura. And I was like, I'm in a council meeting. I want to go, but I'd have to leave my meeting. But, you all were there. You were there. Tura was there. Rebecca was there. Community was watching. I know Karina was talking out of her window. And like you said, community kicked in. And that was probably one of the most beautiful, memorable experiences that I'll ever have in my life, because a life was able to be saved, because the model that you're talking about was actually able to be utilized in real life and in real time. So, man.
We had a reporter say, were you surprised that everything played out just the way you said it would? No, because we've known that we're right. And I say that with all the humility, and not, we're not talking into the ether with things that sound good coming out of our mouth, right? We're talking about things that we've researched, that we've lived, that we've experienced, that we've built, tried and true, right? And so we knew that if people did what they were supposed to do, that more likely than not, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, things can always, twist, and there will be times where things go south, but we were not surprised that it did not.
I think that's really, I'm sorry, sis, what was that last part?
I was saying thank you, Karina Lou, and thank you, Oakland.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what defund is, y'all. Invest in trauma responders and first responders, right? And so there were 21 police officers there. 21.
You know what? I still have to figure out who authorized that. That just reminds me, I got to go back and figure out.
That's it, y'all. When you're driving down Oakland and you see a car pulled over and there's like 8 cops, that person is not necessarily right on violation of parole. That person might legit have all their L straight. That's just OPD policy. They swarm it. And part of why they do that is particularly at shift change, because if they're late for shift change, just by a few minutes, then they get that full 4 hours per time. Peak the game.
Oy vey. Okay. One of the reasons why that particular incident was really powerful for me, but scary, is because there are people, it could be a handful of people, I don't know, but there are definitely forces that don't want this model to succeed, right? Crime actually pays. And I'm not talking about paying the low-level folks who are engaged in the underground economy. I'm talking about it's a massive industry for this country. And so it always concerns me about the things that we don't talk about, the COINTELPRO-ish things that we don't talk about, and the ways like, have you seen White Boy Rick?
I sure did.
Did you see White Boy Rick?
I saw the picture movie and I saw the documentary. Both amazing.
Okay. We gotta do, and people are tripping like, why is Carroll always talking about White Boy Rick? But we gotta do a clubhouse or a live about it, because why it's so fascinating to me is because you get a clear picture of how the state utilizes police departments to engage in the underground economy.
Wait, and they did that to a white boy.
That part in Michigan.
Yeah.
With Axel Foley's boss.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm just like, there's so many layers to this. Like, and I don't want it to seem trivial, but the reality is that this is not out of character for police departments across the country. I'm sure we can point to not just Detroit, but Chicago and Los Angeles and Philadelphia and other places. And we're not having that conversation because crime can exist and persist because there's a level of crime that is engaged in by the people who are supposed to be stopping it in the first place. And to me, that's what that really showed.
It really does. And Terha says all the time, right? Like if they wanted to end crime today, they could. Mm-hmm. Right? Like all they'd have to do is invest half as heavily and half as intensely, right, in the things we're talking about, preventative and healing and rehabilitation, as they do in police and prisons and punitive responses. Just half. Right. Just half. But then, right, what is OPD, going to retire on? That they're not making $300,000 a year once they retire. What the lobby, just all of the money inside of the lobby game around corrections and policing.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. What about all the towns that have been built up in California around prisons and the economies that create and all the jobs that those things create? Like all of the investors who invest in private prisons and all the staff at public prisons. Like there's an industry, which is why we call it the prison industrial complex, that actually like employs a lot of people. And that's the legal side. I'm not even getting into all of the drug smuggling and all of the economy also pays people. So that's the thing that scares me about this model, is because I don't know if conditions will be created such that we try to intervene in a situation. You know what? I'm not even going to put it out there, but it concerns me about what will be done to make sure that this movement does not actually take root in the city of Oakland. That's something I think about every single day.
And we should be thinking about it and be really clear that it's not just about, and this, so I'm just going to open it up some more for the folks that are watching, right? It's not just about this model, but it's about what the success of this model means.
Right.
And particularly what the success of this model means coming from Oakland. We are the vanguard. When we get it right, the rest of the country follows. So we're not just talking about saving lives in Oakland. We're talking about saving lives across the country. We're not just talking about dismantling the paradigm of cops being the answer to every single social ill in Oakland. We're talking about a ripple effect across the country, right? And they are the frontline soldiers that protect the status quo of white supremacy and patriarchy and race-based capitalism, right? They're the protectors, and done their job very for 400 years, right? And that's the fight that I get in with abolitionists. And yes, I call myself an abolitionist light, right? Because that's another segment, but because I'm honest about who I am.
Right.
But sometimes I feel like we get in these woo-woo conversations, these la-la land conversations about dismantling prisons and police. And I'm like, they will kill you, right? They will kill every single one of us to hold on to their stuff.
That's right.
Every single one of us.
That's right.
And we're not having that real conversation, right?
Exactly.
About we're not doing that, and we need to. And yes, and there are elements at the city level here in Oakland that engage in that kind of nasty business, right? Who are more committed to the preservation of their power than they are to the preservation of the people.
Woo! But we got to do it.
Yep.
We got to create a better tomorrow.
Yep.
And
I'm so grateful to you and Bob, y'all in Belly of doing work for us and with us, right? With us. And it's with us, and it's critical. It's so important. But want to uphold how exposed, right, as a Black woman, you are in this role, not just to the dirty elements inside of City Hall, but the white supremacist nastiness that is in our country right now, and and folks that are on this live and are listening to this and support Carroll and ran for her campaign. It wasn't just getting her in office, right? We got to take care of this sister while she's in there, and I love that you are the one consistent voice of, there's no FCC, of I don't give a fuck, this is wrong.
I know sometimes I'm like, oh, do I gotta be like that again?
You do, you too, but I don't want people to lose how intense that is and what that means, and every time you do it. So
yeah, it's definitely a lot to carry, being the buzzkill when everybody just wants to go along to get along. But I'm happy that I do have some colleagues that are like, okay, Carol, all right, go ahead,
yep.
do it. You got to say what you got to say.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for that. And I want to really work with people who want to run for office, who want to take up that mantle, and who want to learn how to do it so that they can run and be effective, so that it's not such a small minority, but we have people at every level of government understanding that it is not the silver bullet and that's not what's going to get us free. But there are some things that you can do to extract benefit for community, which is what Terha says all the time too. We got to see what we can take out to give back. So that's my role right now.
Yep, it is. And this is the time of extraction. And Oakland, this is our time. Like those of you that have been in the streets and the movement with us, you know, for a long time. Like this is what we've been working toward. We didn't see it. Well, Terha saw it coming. We didn't. But it is here, right? And there are wins that we can get for the folks, right? There are wins that we can extract right now if we stick together, we keep organizing, we support our electeds, and we build our own shit, right? Like if we do all roads in.
Well said, sis. Well said. The time is now. Things are shifting in ways that only can be created by a higher power. And you know, I'm not saying what I believe in, but it seems supernatural about all of the doors that are opening up. And so I think that means that we got to get even more fortified, because the strides that we're making in this particular moment are historic. And we got to stay the course. I mean, even though like I'm being threatened with recall by a bunch of trolls on Twitter, it's hilarious. I feel like I have so much support from the people in my district and across the city that I'm just empowered. I feel really empowered to push for the things that we all believe in, the things that I ran on, and the things that we've been organizing for years.
Forever,
for well over. I mean, our kids are about to be graduating from high school, and they were under Baba Shaka's chair playing together, under his table, dining room table. Shout out to Baba Shaka, Black August, and you know, his health. But it's time. That's it.
Yep. I remember us saying, like, I'm sure we said it before, met each other, but we certainly, with our babies under the table, said each other, right? Like the world was going to look different for them than it looked for us when we inherited it, and we making good on that on that promise, and that gives me hope in a way that I haven't had hope in a long time. I mean, it's also scary because we know the more progress we make, the harder they're going to push back.
Exactly.
You know, we've got you know. Shout out to our loved ones that are rotten in American concentration camps for not doing much more than we're doing right now, right? Asserting the humanity of Black folks and fighting for right to not just sit at their table, but build our own table. So we know how serious this thing gets. But,
Well, I'm going to let you leave with that last word. I said it's time, and it is time to wrap. I am so deeply, deeply appreciative of you. I appreciate you giving me this time this evening, and to everybody listening that you gave your time. I love you. I appreciate you. And I thank the Creator for you. And you all will see us back here, not next Thursday, but the Thursday following, for another word with Councilmember Fife and our special guest in the city of Oakland. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you.
Community. Thank you, Oakland. We love you, and we'll see you soon.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.